Hello and welcome to Eye on Oakland. I'm Chuck Moss, your host, and we have a great guest today. We have one of our favorite people, Dave Dulio, who's the political science professor, director of the Center for Civic Engagement at Oakland University, and we always say go Grizzlies. So welcome back. Now here's the deal. 2024 election year. The working title, which I guess we're going to use for free of this show, is what the bloody hell is going on? And do you have a clue? Because if so, you're the only one.
Well, I was going to say, Chuck, first of all, thanks for having me back. And second, if anybody tells you they know what's happening or what is going to happen, they're lying because, every time we think, well, I've seen it all, or it couldn't get any crazier, right? Just wait a couple of minutes because it's going to get crazier and you're going to see something that you've never seen before.
Well, I remember, I'm old enough to remember 1968, where I was 14, 15, and that was horrible because, people getting killed and and this is feel that bad, but it's like, I guess where do we start? Let's start at the top, presidential. Okay. Joe Biden seems to be like in James Buchanan territory here. Can he get pulled? Can they pull him out? I mean, it's kind of, what do you think?
Oh, sure. I think they definitely can. Joe Biden is a seriously flawed candidate, but maybe the best thing that he's got going for him is that he's running against another seriously flawed candidate. And, I think that you're going to start to see it very soon. The messaging from the Biden campaign, I think, is going to be Trump's a criminal and Trump is a felon. And now they've got a court verdict to use as evidence. And I think that's going to be a tough sell for Trump to counter that with independent voters and frankly, in places like Oakland County that are all over the map and in terms of swing states and competitive states like Michigan, Oakland County, Kent County, I think are the top two in terms of importance, just because there's such a tranche of votes that will come out of those two places.
Well, let's talk about Michigan. I mean, Michigan is really up for grabs right now. Now, the old line is that Abraham Lincoln, what would you say if the election were held today? So I'd be really surprised. The election is not until November. But it's a lot of, well, Abe had a lot of good things to say. So the deal is that though Biden's got some issues in Michigan. I mean, since you brought up Michigan, I'll jump right into that. You've got the Hamas factor, which has led him to short Israel. And I don't know how much that's going to bite him. And then you've got what seems to be an emerging softness in the African-American community that I looks to me like he's getting very soft with African-American men. Now, women's, I don't know, but he's got some fires to put out there. What do you see like Michigan, Minnesota, and his softness with African-America?
Yeah, look, I think that's on the money. Michigan's going to be close, and there's no doubt about that, right? I mean, Biden wins here in 2020 by 154,000 votes or so. That seems like a lot of votes only when we compare it to Trump's margin in 2016, which was less than 11,000 votes. But you start to add up the constituencies with which Joe Biden has some trouble or some concerns, let's put it that way. And you've got the Arab American community for sure, based on the Israel-Hamas war. And I also think, too, that you can add in there a good number of folks on the progressive left, because they have sort of adopted that, it seems, as their issue of the day and calls for permanent ceasefire, critical questioning of the administration's policy with respect to Israel. So that might be more than just the Arab American community. And I think that a good place to start talking about that is the primary in February, when we had 100,000 or so votes go for uncommitted. And I would bet that has only grown if we had a primary today when it was Biden and uncommitted. I bet you'd see an increase in the number of folks that voted for uncommitted. Not that all of those people are going to not vote for Biden, right? I think a good number of them are going to come home and vote for Biden, but you start to combine, even if it's 20%, right? And call it 20,000 votes. You start to then go into other constituencies. You mentioned the African-American community, soften support, right? Trump is doing better with African-Americans, continuing, frankly, a trajectory that goes back to 2020, when he got more votes out of the city of Detroit than he did in 2016. I would add to that, young people are turned off by both candidates. And you know, I mean, you could probably do a combination element here with young people when it comes to, you know, not relating to the candidates, but also Biden's policy in Israel. So you know, all over the map, you're finding problems or potential big concerns for the Biden campaign to pull out a win here in Michigan. And I would just put a final point on it. If Biden doesn't win Michigan, his path to 270 electoral votes is incredibly narrow. Michigan is a must-have for Joe Biden.
Well, you mentioned the alliance, and I think I jumped on this very quickly. Is that it's not simply you know, Muslims, Arab Americans, whatever, but the left and whatever we want to call them, progressives, Marxists, commies, whatever, you know, they brand themselves every other week. But the deal is that this is not simply the anti-Israel, and it is very anti-Israel, and it has become in some places anti-Jewish, almost verging on pogroms, is the left. And I don't know that this is a good hill for the Democratic Party to want to try and defend. But you move over into certainly Michigan and some other states where the Arab American community is very, you know, very good Americans, long-standing, multi-generation, and they tend to regard Palestine the way my people regarded Ireland. So I understand that too. And that for those people to vote no is tough. I think Biden's got a real problem. His tent is so wide that if any of the donkeys start running out the doors, you got a problem there. Trump, on the other hand, I mean, is this election going to be once again Donald Trump versus Donald Trump?
Let's stick with Biden there for a second, because okay. I think the problems extend a little further, because it's not just, and this will be a nice bridge into Trump, but it's not, so take that Arab American community, right? It's not like these folks or the progressive left that's you know, part of the abandoned Biden movement, right? It's not that they're going to go and vote for Trump. It's, are they going to vote at all, right? And I think that you take that, combine it with a pretty clear enthusiasm problem on the side of the Democrats, and it starts to spell even more trouble. Contrast that with the incredible enthusiasm that Trump has with his base and his supporters, that has only gone up, I think, after this guilty verdict has come through. And that is another, I would say, significant advantage for Donald Trump in Michigan and elsewhere.
Well, the battle is always for the middle, and I'm going to call them the up for grabs, because I don't call them the moderates. I don't even know if they're middle anymore. And independents, these are the up for grabs, wherever they are. And who's looking better for the up for grabs, or are they still kind of sitting, waiting and watching?
I think that's a really good term to use for those folks, right? And I'm going to use it, Chuck, but I will provide attribution every time that I do.
Well, good, because I like attribution. I know that once I was talking to Brooks Patterson, and I said I was using this phrase of yours, and he said, "Why are you giving me credit?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, you wrote this thing in the news some years ago, or you crunched numbers. I've used that over years, and think I've given you credit? Hell no." Okay, fair's fair.
Pretty standard Brooks right there, right?
Oh yeah. Anyway,
so They are, right. They're up for grabs. I think that these are pragmatic voters who are looking for something, right. And I think that they are going to be full of cognitive dissonance for the remainder of the election cycle, right. I think that on the one hand, right, these are not political junkies like you and me. They are not folks that are paying attention. These are folks that are battling the everyday issues of American life, right? And right now, that has a lot to do with prices that remain high. You know, the Biden administration can try to come through and say, "Well, inflation's coming down; it's not as high as it was," and boy, personal incomes are up, and unemployment is low, and all these factors say that the economy is really strong. And then people go to the grocery store and they're like, "Are you kidding me?" Right? They have sticker shock. Forget trying to buy a house with interest rates that are higher than we've seen in many years, and it just is a reminder that people's personal economic situations are not that great for a lot of Americans, and that would, you know, in any other election cycle, that would say, well, Biden has lost those people. But they look at the other side of the ledger and they see Donald Trump, who just had 34 felony convictions. And you wonder if these non-ideologues can stomach voting for a felon. And because I just don't think that jibes very well with where, you know, with where they want their country, with where they want the presidency. And I think that it may not come down to who those people vote for. It may come down to whether or not they vote at all.
It's not who they vote for; it's who they don't vote for, or who they sit on their hands. I mean, okay, so I'm not a political junkie. I have to reject that. I'm a political crackhead. So what are you going to say? Yeah, you know, look. Is it always in the, I mean, we'll find out, obviously, but does it always in the end kind of boil down to it's the economy stupid? I mean, is that always it, or it's the stupid economy?
Well, you know, when the economy is an issue, it's always at the top of the list, right? We could go back through history and find some election cycles where the economy was really strong and people maybe looked down the list of issues that they care about, right? And it sort of becomes not a secondary or tertiary issue, but just one that people are like, okay, things are fine. What else am I going to make my decision on? But when the economy is bad, and again, macroeconomic indicators aside, people's personal pocketbook issues, I think are, well, look, all we have to do is look at the survey data that's out there that shows in poll after poll, survey after survey, that the number one issue is economy, inflation, prices, you know, however you want to put it. And I think that is going to be Biden's biggest problem.
The economy. I mean, that always kind of is what it boils down to. And it's always been very schizophrenic because we've got all this inflation going on. We don't have high unemployment, but you know, you're as you say, you go to the store, I go to the gas station. It's like, well, you know. So real quick, I think we're going to be taking a break right now because there's stuff I want to get right into, and so we'll do it right after the break. I'm Chuck Moss. We're talking with Dave Dulio, political science professor, director of the Center for Civic Engagement at Oakland University. And we're talking about what the heck is going on in 2024. Chuck Moss, don't go away. We'll be right back here on Eye on Oakland.
Hi, I'm Smokey Bear, and I made an assistant to help you prevent wildfires.
Dude, I've got this. I've been camping since I was 5 years old.
But I am a camping influencer.
You know what? I'll bet you $5.
Okay.
Assistant Smokey, what is the best way to put out a campfire?
To put out a campfire, drown with water, stir, drown again. Then make sure the fire is out cold by feeling with the back of your hand.
Wait, really?
I'll take the $5.
Hello, welcome back to Eye on Oakland. I'm Chuck Moss, your host. We're talking with Professor Dave Dulio is director of the Center for Civic Engagement, Oakland University, and we always say go Grizzlies. And so, I mean, look, I like to tell people, I be honest, I went to a college that's so elite, we do not have a football or a basketball program. Michigan State. So onward. Really, they're chatting about the effects of the election, the up for grabs. Right now, Trump, it's like absence makes the heart grow fonder. Is Donald Trump kind of your old ex who's got the really good job, is looking better and better? But, I mean, in 2020, we talked. We said it's really the election is between Donald Trump and Donald Trump. He can shut his mouth. He might actually work. But so anyway, is this Donald Trump versus Donald Trump again, or there's more to it than that?
I think there's more to it, and that's on several levels, right? I think in 2020, the line about if Trump would just keep his mouth shut, he'd probably win was right. I don't think that's enough this time, just because we're going to hear for the next 5 months from the Biden campaign, Trump's a felon, Trump's a criminal. We can't have that in the Oval Office. I mean, aside from other, we could make some historical comparisons, but that's going to be the one of the main messages from the Biden campaign, and only time will tell if it works, right? Because Chuck, as having been in so many campaigns over the years, right? Candidates try to talk about issues where they have a comparative advantage over their opponent. And you start to go down the list of issues that are important to the voters right now. And you struggle to find an issue where Joe Biden has an advantage over Donald Trump, right? I mean, economy, advantage Trump. Immigration, advantage Trump. Really, I think those are the top two issues for this election cycle. You will also hear, I think, the Biden campaign. We've already seen it here in Michigan with Biden's visits and surrogate visits. The issue of abortion come up, and I think too that gets back to the enthusiasm issue and enthusiasm component to all this, right? Where Democrats are going to talk about abortion because it fires up their base. And, that may not be the first issue that they would want to talk about, only because it's pretty far down the list of issues for most Americans. But it's all they got, right? I mean, and because they can't talk about the economy, they can't talk about immigration in any sort of advantageous way. So, I think it's not Trump versus Trump. It's all sorts of dynamics that are folded together.
Well, abortion, I mean, I always thought here in Michigan, abortion's off the table. It's a constitutional amendment. It's constitutionally protected right. I'm right to life guy. I don't like it much, but if I were running, that's what I'd have to say is, look, it's off the table. It's not even there unless you want to change the Constitution again, and be my guest. But, are they going to try and just scare people on abortion now for the year to, for the, perpetuity? Abortion is constitutionally protected. So it's, and talk about it, but.
It is here in Michigan, right? But
right.
Federally, it's not. And this is one of those, maybe it's an unintended consequence of the Dobbs decision, right? I mean, because it's no longer federally constitutionally protected, Democrats will always have a line about it that they can go back to, which is if you give Republicans control at the federal level, they will push a federal ban on abortion.
But you can't. It's not. That's like saying, they're going to put you all back in chains.
Of course, Chuck. But I mean, again, as somebody who's seen so many campaigns, right? I mean, just because you say it doesn't mean it's true, and people get away with that sort of stuff all the time. It's almost like candidates saying, you'll see a candidate maybe running for, let's not use the Senate. Let's use a U.S. House race, right? I mean, running for U.S. House, and they say, when I'm elected, I'm going to get this done. And No, you're not, because you're only one person in this huge system of checks and balances where you need everybody else to go along with your idea, right? It's this over promising. And in this case, it would be it's overstating what could happen at the federal level. And, forget the fact that it's not a constitutional issue anymore, but even if Republicans have majorities, there's no way they have the votes to push something like this. And I also don't think that there's much, I don't think they have the stomach for it. I don't think they want to do it, because it would just keep that issue front and center for Democrats. I think on the Republican side, it's, I think in the states, you'll continue to see changes and debates about it. But at the federal level, I think Republicans are going to stay away from it. And if they don't, they're stupid.
Well, they should stay away from it, because that's the whole, it always should have stayed with the states. And I remember it was only 3 years after it passed, I went to law school, and we were reading this thing going, penumbras and emanations, what the heck is that? And, okay. But I'll have to just have here, I'll say it on the record, that I always promised that I would try to get things done. I never said I actually could do it.
That's a legitimate statement, right? I mean, if somebody says, I'll try to do this, I'll work toward it, right? But then you see, and the presidential candidates are going to do it too. Biden will say, I'm going to do this, and Trump's going to say, I'm going to do. No, you're not. I mean, you're just not. And maybe in these days, and look, I'm an institutionalist, and I have a real problem with, just from a system standpoint and a constitutional standpoint, I have a real problem with the expanse of executive power, right? I mean, the lawmaking power rests with Congress. And in so many ways, presidents in the last couple of decades, several decades maybe, have amassed power, and it's really gone unchallenged and unchecked, whether it's through executive order, executive memoranda, signing statements when it comes to signing legislation. It is just there's been executive overreach in so many ways. And so maybe I'm Pollyannish about this, right? But by saying that they can't do it, they'll certainly try. Whoever gets elected.
Well, it's funny. Have you ever read a book called The Rise of the Administrative State by a guy named Philip Hamburger? Like the sandwich. Okay. That, to me, that was one of the things, kind of an eye opener for, now I just said 20 things I already knew. And that, and we call that the swamp. And that's kind of, maybe if Trump comes back in, he might actually be able to do something. We'll see. But the deal is that, okay, I want to switch a quick gear here. And, the RFK factor. I mean, talk about headlines, headlines from 1968, Alex, Lady Madonna's coming next out. Robert F. Kennedy, I mean, is that going to be a factor, or is he kind of peaked?
Oh, I think he's a huge factor. You look nationally and here in Michigan, and he's getting 9-10% of the vote. That will likely shrink as we get closer to Election Day. But in a state like Michigan, where the margin is going to be razor thin, even a couple of points is enough to tip the balance, and provide one candidate the votes that he needs to overcome the other one, right? I mean, the one interesting thing about well, there are many interesting things, but one of the interesting things about Kennedy's campaign is, this debate about who he's pulling more votes from, Trump or Biden, and I don't think we have a good answer to that right now. And I mean, you think about the kind of candidate he is and some of his positions, and I think that it might be a situation where he's currently pulling almost equally from both sides.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know he went to the Libertarians, and they all just laughed, but that's what they do about anybody. I mean, Libertarians,
Trump went to the Libertarians too, and got booed, and I mean, well, move.
What PJ O'Rourke said about the Libertarians is, I love the Libertarians, but what can you say about a political party that can't get up enough members to hold a good kegger?
What?
So, love the Libertarians, but so now media, is the media even a factor anymore. I mean, they're so decayed and compromised. I mean, the D's love them, the R's ignore them. Is there anyone who sees them as anything? Or, I mean, is it basically late night all over again? It's a relic of another time, and meh.
That's an interesting way to pose that question. And I think that the more time that passes, the less relevant they become, because and that's not necessarily a good thing. And look, because there's plenty to criticize about the press, right? I mean, I think that and we've seen that over time, and people will probably get mad at me for saying that, but that's fine. But the press continues to give critics ample ammunition. I mean, whether it's just take the Hunter Biden laptop thing, right? People come out and say, oh, there's this Hunter Biden laptop, and oh my goodness, it's full of all this damning material. And then what do we see, right? Oh, it's Russian disinformation from the press. And guess what? It turned out to be true. So people those up for grabs folks that we were talking about, they look at that and they go, God, again, just tell me the story. Give me the facts. We have gone so far away from Walter Cronkite, just the facts, ma'am, kind of situation. And there is almost no line anymore between news reporting and opinion. And that's a problem for the media. And the other piece of it is that people can get information anywhere they want these days, right? It's so accessible. Now, it's not always the best or most believable information, or the most accurate information, but people can get it. And as you know, Chuck, we all of us live in these information bubbles where we seek confirmation of our own beliefs rather than anything that challenges us, and that just reinforces some of the problems that are in the media landscape these days. Well,
they're unfortunately they've run out of customers. I have a source I really trust, and I have for a number of years. I get all my news from South Park. I mean, really, that's true. The only source I trust is South Park. I mean, the Simpsons used to be, but they've kind of gone a little squishy these days. We're going to run out of time here, real quick. Any predictions at all, or is it just too wild? Too wild.
It's wild. I mean, the only prediction is more uncertainty and more craziness, right? I mean, I think that as you know, Chuck, I mean, we're 5 months out from Election Day, and that's multiple lifetimes in politics. I mean, I do think that there are 3 pretty high leverage moments that are coming up. One is, and it's probably the most, the debate at the end of June between Trump and Biden. I think that has the potential to produce some sort of just outlandish.
In about 20 seconds, that debate. Why did Trump agree to do it?
Oh, because he knows he can take down Biden in that format.
Well, he's got to take down Biden and Tapper and what's her name, Candy Crowley or whatever.
Well, if anything, if Trump's good at anything, it's being combative with the media.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. All right. Well, we'll have to let you go. This has been great. I'm glad you're like I said, honest enough to say that you don't have a clue, because I don't either, and nobody else does. And anybody who says that they have a clue is lying, which is true. Thank you, Dave Dulio, political science professor from Oakland University, the director of the Center for Civic Engagement. Sometime we got to talk about the Center for Civic Engagement. And go Grizzlies. I'm Chuck Moss. Thank you all for joining us here on Eye on Oakland.